Go ahead. Make my day.
In this video, we look at Clint Eastwood, then and now. There are certain names in the realm of acting that cannot be ignored. The ones who are truly legendary for all the performances in front of the camera, and all the work behind the camera that is done to make every movie they're in special. Clint Eastwood deserves that honor. He's an iconic filmmaker who has been a part of many all-time classic films. But what has his life been like throughout these many decades? Let us show you Clint Eastwood then and now. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more of our amazing content. The early life of Clint Eastwood. Clinton Eastwood Jr. was born in 1930 in San Francisco, California, to Ruth and Clinton Eastwood. Yes, that means he's really old, but trust us when we say he's done a lot in that time, obviously. His family relocated 3 times during the 1930s, and the Eastwoods lived in an affluent area of the town they ended up in. So much so that they had a swimming pool, belonged to a country club, and each parent drove their own car. And back at that time in American history, that was a big deal. Eastwood's father was a manufacturing executive at Georgia Pacific for many years, and that no doubt lent to their good livelihood. Eastwood attended Piedmont Middle School, where he was held back due to poor academic scores, which back then meant that he probably wasn't going to make something of himself. Clint graduated from the airplane shop. I think that was his major, joked classmate Don Kincaid. Another high school friend, Don Loomis, echoed, "I don't think he was spending that much time at school because he was having a pretty good time elsewhere." That leaves the mind to wonder what his classmate meant by that, right? But in many ways, it's just an indication of how Eastwood always went and did things his own way. Eastwood held a number of jobs including lifeguard, paper carrier, grocery clerk, forest fighter, and golf caddy. He tried to go to college, but instead was drafted into the United States Army during the Korean War. He wasn't in combat, to be clear, which some who knew him made fun of, but he did serve, and that's to be appreciated. But his future wasn't meant to be in regular jobs, academics, or the military. No, he was destined to do other work that would fulfill him for the rest of his life. Birth of his acting career. According to Eastwood's official biography, the key figure who helped give Eastwood his start in Hollywood was a man named Chuck Hill. While in Los Angeles, Hill became reacquainted with Eastwood and managed to sneak him into a Universal studio where he introduced him to cameraman Irving Glassberg. Glassberg arranged for an audition under Arthur Lubin, who, although very impressed with Eastwood's appearance and stature, then 6 foot 4 inches, tall men were seen as more marketable for various reasons, but disapproved of his acting, remarking, "He was quite amateurish. He didn't know which way to turn or which way to go or do anything." Lubin suggested that he attend drama classes and arranged for Eastwood's initial contract in April 1954 at $100 per week. After signing, Eastwood was initially criticized for his stiff manner and delivering his lines through his teeth, a lifelong trademark that many people grew to appreciate. Yet you can understand why at the time that wasn't the best thing for acting, especially back then when being eloquent and charming were seen as the golden ticket, if you would. From that point on, he honestly struggled to get good roles. He bounced around from contract to contract and bit part to bit part. He did everything from creature features to westerns, alien series, and more. But eventually, he got his big break via Rawhide. In 1958, Eastwood was cast as Rowdy Yates for the CBS hour-long western series Rawhide, one of the most popular westerns of all time in terms of TV. Eastwood was not especially happy with his character on the show, believe it or not. Eastwood was almost 30, and Rowdy was too young and cloddish for Eastwood's comfort. After the show began, it took just 3 weeks for Rawhide to reach the top 20 in TV ratings, and although it never won an Emmy, it was a major success for several years, and as noted before, is still beloved to this day. Rawhide years were some of the most grueling of Eastwood's career, often filming 6 days a week for an average of 12 hours a day. By late 1963, Rawhide was beginning to decline in the ratings, and lack of freshness in the scripts which makes you wonder how Gunsmoke lasted for so long, it was canceled in the middle of the 1965-66 season. Eastwood made his first attempt at directing when he directed several trailers for the show, but was unable to convince producers to let him direct an episode. But don't worry, he would get his chance eventually. Even with that setback though, in terms of the show's cancellation, he wasn't done in Hollywood by a long shot. Fistful of Dollars and Beyond. In late 1963, Eastwood's Rawhide co-star Eric Fleming rejected an offer to star in an Italian-made Western called A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, filmed in a remote region of Spain by a relatively unknown director, Sergio Leone. Richard Harrison suggested Eastwood to Leone, because Harrison knew Eastwood could play a cowboy convincingly. Eastwood thought the film would be an opportunity to escape from his rawhide image, because as many actors before and after him would attest to, typecasting could be a death sentence in terms of the roles you get later on. In Rawhide, I did get awfully tired of playing the conventional white hat, the hero who kisses old ladies and dogs and was kind to everybody. I decided it was time to be an anti-hero. Eastwood was instrumental in creating the Man with No Name's characters and distinctive visual style, which would later prove very useful for many movies to come. A Fistful of Dollars proved a landmark in the development of spaghetti westerns, with Leone depicting a more lawless and desolate world than traditional westerns, and challenging American stereotypes of a western hero with a morally ambiguous anti-hero. The film's success made Eastwood a major star in Italy, and he was rehired to star in For a Few Dollars More. And then came The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all of which are still talked about with reverence because of how Eastwood acted in them and how the films were done, showing that Eastwood really made a smart move by doing these films, and that would bring him much success in the times to come. The boom of his career. Eventually, the Fistful of Dollars line was brought to the United States, but it wasn't until films like Hang 'em High was made that the name Clint Eastwood started to be respected in Hollywood. By the time 1971 came around, Clint Eastwood had started to do directing, and also during that year came one of his most iconic roles via Dirty Harry, a film that is still quoted to this day via its "Did I fire 5 shots or 6" line.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Following that came a string of appearances and films he became associated with, including The Outlaw Josie Wales, Every Which Way But Loose, Escape from Alcatraz, and more. Directing and Unforgiven. Fast forwarding to the late 80s and 90s, Clint continued to be a force in Hollywood, including getting his first Best Director award for the jazz biopic Bird. Then, in 1992, came Unforgiven. Yep, one of the all-time great westerns was done by Eastwood in the 90s, and it's still beloved to this day. That movie won him not just Best Picture, but Best Director, something he was very proud of. Directing success. Let's now focus on certain directing successes that Eastwood has had. We already talked about Bird, but another big one was $1 Million Baby, which cleaned up on the awards circuit. There was also American Sniper, which was one of the biggest movies out there when it arrived in 2015. There was also Gran Torino, Sully, Invictus, and more. In many ways, he's as respected a director as he was an actor, and has won many awards for Best Director and nominated for many more, something that few can truly say. Recent years and legacy. In recent years, Clint Eastwood has very much stopped his acting and focused more on behind-the-scenes work in Hollywood, as well as other projects. After all, he's over 90 years old. He's allowed to go and take a break, don't you think? How will he be remembered? Easy. He'll be remembered as one of the best to ever do it, and one of the best to push on despite overwhelming odds and stereotypes weighing him down. There you have it, Clint Eastwood then and now. Let us know in the comments below what you thought. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.